If I'm wasting this lifetime, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, please come and kick me. So they did try. She tried, all my other guides tried as well. They tried to give me all those signals when I was feeling disconnected, when I was depressed, when I was crying. They were giving me all of that. I just wasn't able to listen or understand what to do. So they had to make it bigger and bigger because guess what? I'd asked for them, I'd asked for their support. So that is the beautiful thing that I was able to connect with her and she did her part. And life before and after, as painful as it is in a human experience, it's also really shifted because what shifted afterwards was as I started doing the energy work and started healing my layers through the Akashic records, I started healing the root causes, and this guilt, this shame that I was carrying wasn't just from this lifetime.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Shifting Dimensions podcast, where we explore the unseen, the unknown, and the transformative moments that shift our understanding of reality. I'm your host, Jumi Moses, spiritual seeker and metaphysical investigator, exploring the mysteries of life. On the show today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kanika Vasudeva. She is an Akashic Records reader and energy coach who helps individuals heal from loss, grief, and subconscious blocks to live with purpose and peace. After the devastating loss of her daughter, she discovered the power of energy healing and the Akashic Records to uncover deep rooted patterns, past life imprints, and karmic cycles that shape our lives. Through her work, Kanika helps people break free from inherited trauma, improve relationships, and realign with their highest potential. Kanika, welcome to Shifting Dimensions. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Jumi. I cannot wait for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation because I love talking about the Akashic records. And there's so much we have to cover, but I think it's important to level set. I don't want to take for granted that the audience knows what the Akashic records are, even though I suspect that most of the people who listen to this podcast know what the Akashic records are. But could you, in your own words, give a brief explanation of what the Akashic records are?
Yeah, and I'm glad that we are setting out this way. So, the Akashic Records is our soul's story of everything. So, the soul is where we start incarnating from. So, whether this is this incarnation, this lifetime, or all our previous lifetimes, so it contains all of that. Maybe if I explain it with the example of an apple, that probably might make a little bit more understanding for us in our physical human bodies. So imagine an apple and cut it into 1,000 slices. Every single slice is going to be very paper thin. Now, as a soul, the apple represents your soul. And whenever you've incarnated, that's that single slice of the 1,000th piece of this apple. So it's very paper thin. The point I'm trying to make is that when I look at just one slice, I can almost look through it, right? It's so thin because the soul is so much bigger than that. When we look at our lifetime and we look at sometimes, hey, why am I having these toxic relationships, let's say, why I'm having this trigger, why don't I understand my purpose and so on. It's because we just look at one little thin slice of apple and operate off that and try and understand the whole picture of that. What the Akashic Records does is it gives you the whole picture, the whole apple. So, for example, in this lifetime, you might have had toxic relationships because this is what your soul wants to understand. But then the other relationships or other lifetimes where your souls just wanted to experience things. Like every incarnation we do, we just go out and we go, what is it that I want to try out now? Like how we go out and try out different movies. Sometimes it could be a horror movie, sometimes it could be a romantic movie, it could be a period drama, so on. That's similar to what our soul does. So, when we start tapping into the Akashic records, we really start understanding a lot more about us, not just from this lifetime perspective, like this very small, teeny perspective, and we understand how unlimited we are. So, the best thing with working with the Akashic records is you understand the root cause or the whole story, and then you can heal that, and you can literally shift your entire lifetime with that.
I love that analogy. And another analogy that helps me think about the Akashic records is like the cloud storage of your life, right? You know how in the technological world we talk about, oh, it's in the cloud, right? A lot of the tools or data that we're looking for, we store in the clouds, right? So I feel like the Akashic Records is the cloud database of your soul's incarnations. That's how I try to think about it too, for those who are listening. So thank you for that analogy. How do you access the Akashic Records?
That's a great question. I think I just have an open channel over time. I would say a lot more open channel because it can be more open as well. And then I just go in, set the intent. I work with my higher self. I work with my guides as well, and then tune into the Akashic records. When I'm doing it for my clients, I'll ask their higher self to come in as well, and the guides who would want to come in for them. And then I work with them because usually, as much as the question is, how do I access the Akashic records? Literally, the whole process is about me and my control, like letting that step back and then just allowing whatever is unfolding to unfold. I really believe that this world is based on flow, which would be flow of information, which would be flow of energy, and so on. So it's not that something is not available to us. It's literally like we don't allow it, and we just need to step back. We just need to get our intent there. And even when the intent is very strong, your guides, your higher self, they really want to work with you. They really want to help you access your Akashic records or any other thing. A lot of times, I do feel that whatever intuitive hits we have, we are unconsciously tapping in from the Akashic records. We just don't always know because it's coming in from that cloud storage, right? As you were mentioning, it is all coming in from there. It's all linked there. Akashic records is the library of literally everything that's happening. So it's not just my story, it's your story. It's the story of even businesses and so on. So everything is stored in this whole massive cloud storage or mystical library. And we can all tune into that. All that's required is just our intention, speaking, connecting with our guides and higher selves, and getting there.
Yes, I've heard many people say a similar thing to what you're saying regarding the Akashic record and being able to tap into it. But I want to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit more about you. So, you weren't always an Akashic records reader, of course, or an energy coach. You actually had something unfortunate happen, which was the loss of your daughter, that, from my understanding, catapulted you into this spiritual journey. So, can you talk a little bit about that loss, what it was like, and how your spiritual journey was, and how it led you to the Akashic Records?
Yeah, sure. So I have a very distinct before and after. And if let's say I paint the before picture, I am an engineer, I'm an MBA professional. I was working for big corporate firms. I was doing lots of big projects, multi-million dollar projects for major companies. And so I had followed the path which I felt would bring me happiness. And that path was okay, what do my parents want? What do my friends want? What is it that's more acceptable? And I was doing more and more of that. I was getting disconnected. I was feeling burnt out. I was not completely happy. But people around me that I knew at the time, that was a norm as well. Nobody sort of knew. It was like, okay, now it's the 30s crisis, and now it's this, like just the terms that we put onto things. And I wanted to fix that, but I didn't quite know how. That point in time, being the engineer, being the project manager through and through, it was like whatever I do, it's got to have a result to it. So I would sit down and I would meditate, which was very hard then because I would sit down, quiet my mind for 5 minutes, hard AF. Like even 1 minute, just having silent thoughts, like no thoughts. And they would say, observe the thoughts when I would look it up on YouTube or read some books. And I just wouldn't know how. But even let's say if I managed that, I would come back to the world and my world would have not shifted. It would just be the same. So I was trying on the surface, I was really trying to do the mindset stuff. I was trying to do the meditations and so on. For me, it wasn't changing because I was too much in my own way. My son was around 2, yeah, just a little bit above 2 then. And I was pregnant with my daughter. The pregnancy per se was going very well. From a medical perspective, everything was okay. There were no problems and so on. But I wasn't doing very well in that pregnancy. Like, I really was getting more and more depressed. I was more and more wondering, what is it that I'm doing in the world? I would wake up crying, and it wasn't like a one off thing. I would wake up crying with her lots of times. I wish it wasn't the story, but that is true. And then one day I slept very well. And then I woke up, and of course, I hadn't felt her move, which is when I went to the doctors, tried to figure out what was happening. They told me that she didn't have any heartbeat and I'd lost her. So, this by then, she was 31 weeks old in my womb, which meant that you need to deliver the baby. Your body, by the way, acts like just perfectly. It doesn't distinguish between a baby being stillborn or alive. And so I had to deliver her. So I'd prepared for her arrival. I'd prepared her bassinet, I'd prepared her room. This wasn't the arrival I was expecting. And then we decided to do a cremation ceremony for her. So we did that. But that was all shocking. It was all also surfacing a lot of guilt and shame. Everything, if I look at life before that, it was a lot around I was trying to do what everybody felt was okay, even though I never really felt that I'm trying to comply, but I really was a people pleaser. I really was acting out of that. And even when I was trying to find the peace within and so on, I was trying to really do it so called like how everybody does it and find my peace that way. It just wasn't working. Because the truth is that whenever I sat down to sit with me, and the reason it was so hard to sit with my thoughts is that when you sit, or when I sat down, I would just see all the heavier emotions start coming up first, because they are like, hey, hello, fine, you are sitting down, you've got some time for yourself, great. Now we will start purging out all the heavy stuff inside us. So the moment we sit down, we start feeling the sadness, the shame, the guilt, the grief, all the things come up. And this is what I did, and this is what a lot of people do. They go, can't handle this. And we get up and we walk, and we just cannot sit down. But I think I needed that kick with my daughter. The grief, the loss, the shame was just so real, and I could not escape from it. I think I'm a mom at heart. I was a mom before my son was born, in a way, because I've always liked kids. I've always, during my growing up years as well, I've always been fascinated, loved kids, loved younger people. I just believe that they have a much more happier energy. They have a lot of excitement, curiosity that we tend to dull over the years. So I was just a mom. If somebody needed to get me as something, hit me or so on, there's nothing that would speak as strongly as that wound that I just had. And so now, being faced with that, there were so many things. I was ashamed that I was sleeping while she was dying, that as a mom, I failed on my basic duty, and she was passing away and I was sleeping. Like, how careless is that? I was ashamed of that. I was guilty of how I'd felt when she was with me, and how I had not been able to say hello to her, be present to her. Of course, there were reasons for that, but that's what I was feeling. For a long time, I was asking anyone and everyone around me, the doctors, even strangers, like people. That's how gullible I was. And I think that's how gullible sometimes people can be. I remember there were people who were doing renovation at the time because she came out early. She was still supposed to be born alive a little bit later. So we had just planned some renovations right before she would come, things would be done. And I remember they'd come in, and I'm even asking them, like, I don't even know the people. And I'm asking them, was it my fault? Luckily and gracefully, I think nobody said anything like that to me. They all said, it's okay, you are fine, you did nothing wrong. But that's the amount of guilt we can carry. That's the amount of guilt that I was working through. So for me, it was very important to just get in touch with her, to say, I'm sorry. And in the process, I realized that it is also very important for me to say sorry to myself, to forgive myself. So at that time, I started dabbling into energy coaching. It didn't happen by chance, but I first went to a lot of intuitives and tried to connect with her, but always felt foreign because someone else was doing it for me. And I really wanted to connect with her because I really wanted to say, I'm sorry and I love you. And I wanted to make sure that she was okay. So it was very important. Even if I did that through someone, I was like, she's my daughter. I just need to, even if it's only once, I just need to be able to connect with her and do that myself. So that's what got me into energy healing and the Akashic records, which is where I connected with her. And this is the kicker that I found out. So she had come into my life because I had an agreement with her. The agreement that I had made as a soul, as that apple, like in the apple slice, it's very painful. But in the apple, what I told her was that if I'm wasting this lifetime, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, please come and kick me. So they did try. She tried, all my other guides tried as well. They tried to give me all those signals when I was feeling disconnected, when I was depressed, when I was crying. They were giving me all of that. I just wasn't able to listen or understand what to do. So they had to make it bigger and bigger because guess what? I'd asked for them, I'd asked for their support. So that is the beautiful thing that I was able to connect with her and she did her part. And life before and after, as painful as it is in a human experience, it's also really shifted because what shifted afterwards was as I started doing the energy work and started healing my layers through the Akashic records, I started healing the root causes and this guilt, this shame that I was carrying wasn't just from this lifetime. There were past lifetimes where I'd lost kids. There were past lifetimes where I'd been subservient. And her whole role was okay, don't be subservient, own your power, stand in your femininity, like own that space, which is why she'd come. And I'm so blessed because she came and she stood for me the way she did because it's so different. I don't think I was fully loving, accepting myself before that. Whereas now it's a lot different. I have a lot more acceptance. I have a lot more compassion. I'm not as much of a people pleaser. I could just go on and on, but life is so different. And maybe if I probably just for simplicity, I explain, okay, what is the difference before and after? Before, when I needed to be happy, that was like a short term spike I would seek. Maybe it would be food sometimes. Maybe it would be going out, watching a movie, connecting with a friend, but it would be like this. I would be happy for a while. I would come back. That was my general state in life. I had to seek happiness and it would be very short lived. After, which is now, the happiness is more like this. It's like this. It doesn't matter what's going on in life. It doesn't matter what the traffic is. It doesn't matter what someone said. It doesn't matter what's going on in life. I'm happy. I'm like, I love my life. I'll wake up every day and I'll just be very thankful to whatever is happening. That's the bigger difference that life now is happy, whereas earlier I had to seek short term happiness.
There's so much there, right? You talk about getting pings or insight to go in a different direction. You weren't happy with the life that you were living, people pleasing, doing what you thought you needed to do, being a part of the rat race. That's what I like to call it. And then you're pregnant and you're feeling all of these emotions. And unfortunately, you lose your daughter. And through your journey of healing and discovering the Akashic records, you realize that the reason why she came into your life was to literally wake you up, right? I think about when someone is sick and the doctors are trying to revive them and they put that electrical tool or machine on their chest to jolt them back to life almost. So it seems like her coming into your life, that was her purpose, even though it was very painful. And it's interesting that in looking at the Akashic records, you were able to pinpoint other lifetimes where you had a similar experience, but didn't take the action that you're taking now. Is that fair to say? It seems like in those other incarnations, you lost the child, but maybe you still didn't step into your power. You were still subservient. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Oh, yeah, totally. If I think of myself now, I think of myself as a spiritual nerd, and my best subject is me because there's just so much to unpack and so much to unlearn within me. So I understood that this is the pact that I had with her, and this is what she had to do. But I also started looking back, okay, what's happened and how many times. So once I asked this question in my meditation and I said, how many times have I had this? Because I kept seeing this theme of subservience, at least for me, coming up again and again and again. It would be so many things. Like I've seen a lifetime where I've had my dad, and dad is in a lot of my lifetimes, by the way, dad's almost absent. Dad's there, but not there, or he's just not there at all. And I'm like the person who's carrying everything forward, and I'm supposed to be looking after everyone. And it's just on repeat. You know how many times I've done that? 200 is the answer I got. And so now that I think of this lifetime, I go, wow, if I've done that on repeat almost in a different way, different situation, but I've experienced that 200 lifetimes, I'm so glad it changed this time. I'm so glad that she came in and she almost rescued me, which is very opposite to what we would think if I was not understanding the whole picture. Thank God. Thank God my guides are here. Thank God they did all this work. Thank God as a soul to myself because I made all these pacts and I said, if I'm wasting another lifetime, let's please just do something to jolt, shake me up. But a lot of the times when we are having experiences in this lifetime, I find also working with other clients that we have multiple lifetimes where we've had things like that. We also have parts in this lifetime that get wounded. So the soul, and if I can bring us back to the apple again, right, this apple slice is acting out in a certain way because your whole apple is that way. So let's say if your apple inside is getting a little bit rotten, chances are that when you're cutting this 1,000 slice, that's going to have a little bit of that rotten impact as well. So if you've had toxic relationships, if you've had like child birth issues, if you've been abused, raped, and so on, if that's happened, then there's part of that stays within us and that we bring to this lifetime. Now, how do we bring that? We bring it because sometimes it's just the energetic wiring that we have. That is just how we are. Like as humans, we all operate on energy. Like we all need to have food to give us energy to be able to survive. But when we are formed in the physical form, we're also getting energy from our parents. So that's bringing the DNA and that's carrying the DNA of our generations before that. We're also bringing in energy from the earth because we are incarnating on earth. We're also bringing in energy from our soul and generally like the blueprint of who we're bringing that as well. Now, sometimes that soul gets scarred if the experiences are very traumatic, or if we've had something where maybe we even lost a part of our soul. So, hence, that's why when we work onto just one when we want to work on one lifetime, it's good to go back and look at all the previous things and the root cause of what's happened. If you want your apple, if you want your soul to be happy, if you want your current lifetime to be happy, you need to have the apple to be unrotten first. So that's what we work in the Akashic records.
I love that you brought that up because I was going to ask you, do we bring things from our past lives into this life? And you just answered that question because you talked about having those experiences in other lives, right? And not taking any sort of corrective action. And in this life, you decide to choose a different path. But it's fascinating to think that you had 200 lives where you were repeating the same cycle. And I have follow-up questions regarding that and reincarnation and really what the purpose of all of this is, but I don't want to get into that right now. I'm going to save that for later into the conversation. Something else you said that I got from your website, which I think is fascinating. You say in talking about your daughter. You say that pain didn't just break me, it initiated me. Now, the word I'm curious about is the initiated part. What do you mean by it initiated you? Because I hear people talk about initiation so much within the spiritual community, and I just want to get your perspective on what you mean by that pain initiated you.
Yeah, beautiful question. So, if I look at this lifetime and then if I look at the journey before that, right? Like these 200 lifetimes, I'm doing, they're called time loops. I'm just repeating a similar cycle. Maybe the characters are different, little bit of the story here and there. I'm learning a little bit, evolving a little bit, but much of it is just the same and same on repeat. So it was the same pattern, it was the same energetic programming that I was operating from. Whereas she initiated me because for the first time, the way was deep enough, the pain was deep enough that I'm like, okay, not doing this anymore. Because in terms of, so as I wanted to connect with her, first you have to start raising your vibration. Like just that whole pattern. I'm feeling so down, I'm so depressed at that time. I don't know what to do. So there's that feeling is helplessness. When you have given up, when you're like, okay, this is how life is. And that's literally where I was like, okay, this is how life is. I can't end my life. Like, I've got a son, I've got a family, I've got to carry on, but this is how life is. And life just continues to be worse and worse every day. So that's a very downward trajectory. When I lost her, first time I was wanting to connect with her. Now, this is something that I want to do. Now, I know I didn't even know at that time how. I didn't know any spiritual teacher. I was trying my hands at meditation. I had no luck with that. But I was like, okay, I need to connect with her. And I would tell the universe all the time that you've given me this and you have to give me a way that I connect with her. My words had shifted. I wasn't saying that oh, I'm helpless, don't do anything. I would actually say you have to with the universe. Like it's not a demand, it's not a prayer. Prayer has hope to it. This is not a prayer. It's you need me to survive. You need me to carry on. Like you have to. It's almost like an equal, as if I've stepped up and there's more of a demand. You have to support me here. It wasn't coming from arrogance. I was far away from arrogance at that point, feeling very heartbroken and so on. But it was definitely a place like this just has to happen. So I had taken life back into my own agency had gotten back to me, really, where it's okay, I own my life. This is what I need to do. And so for the first time, it was like, okay, now I need to connect with my daughter. But in doing that, I was raising my vibration because I'm now moving up from hopelessness to going to, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm taking charge of it. And when that happens, that's the passage of initiation because it's okay, I've got some power. I can shift my life. That was just the beginning because chatting with her, I had a conversation with her, and I continue to, like, as I learned, it doesn't have to be a one time thing. You can do it whenever you feel like. It's just different. It's not in the body, not face to face like we are doing it, but it's spiritual. I think of her, I have visions of her, I see her in a different way as well. It is a passage of initiation in the sense that first it was more, okay, I am connecting with her, I am taking the agency. Then through that, once you start realizing that, once I started realizing, oh, okay, I'm not like a failure here because I just failed as a mom. That story did not hold because that's a physical experience, whereas she was just coming and helping me. This is the pact that I had. So we were actually doing exactly what we had said. So there was not much to feel in the spiritual world, there wasn't much to feel guilty or sad about. And then that's the other process where you start becoming a lot more non personal about life. Where life or life on earth, this lifetime, this little slice of apple, you start seeing it more like the style of apple, just a slice of apple. So then it's been like, okay, what are we doing? Why is the story unfolding? And that's why I think of myself as a spiritual nerd, because now I more unpack, okay, why is this happening? Why did this event happen? And so on. It's more like a detective work and then clearing that stuff up. You clear it, and then your lifetime starts shaping up. And hence, it was the initiation because it really started my way up. It gave me the passage of right, basically to step up, to be more into myself. The work that I want to do now is spread more light into the world, which is something that was unthinkable back then. Come on, light, me. Whereas now I want to spread more of this out. I want to spread more of this light out. And hence, in that sense, it definitely initiated me, because to be able to bring more people together, to be able to have more people come up, have that space where they can see themselves, you've got to hold that space for them. You've got to be that light. You've got to be that lighthouse where they can come, they can feel safe, they can let go of their baggage, and so on. So definitely it's a passage that you walk through, and it is an initiation, because to be able to do that, to be able to offer that to the world, there's a lot that has to be healed inside. And I think I definitely am on that place now. There's no going back.
As you were talking, I was thinking about how you started the conversation regarding your journey, where you talked about who you were before and who you are now, right? And if I talk to you 10 years from now, I'm sure you probably would have gone through another change, right? And I bring that up because when I think about initiation, right, I think about it in terms of you shedding a past version of yourself, right? And being ushered into a new version of yourself, like a graduation into your new life, right? Like you've learned certain lessons, you've experienced certain things. Now it's time to shift your paradigm and step into the unknown, step into a version of you that you have not experienced before. So thank you again for breaking that down. And the reason why I'm talking in analogies is so that the viewers, listeners can fully understand and grasp what you're talking about in terms of initiation. Okay. Another thing that you say is, I saw that the pain we carry, grief, conflict, shame, emotional chaos, isn't just ours, it's ancestral, it's karmic, it's energetic. And you hinted at that just now. And you going through your initiation process and connecting with your daughter and tapping into the Akashic records, really understanding that a lot of things in life are not necessarily personal, but they still affect us. So I think that's a perfect segue into this quote, right? Because I really want to talk about the ancestral, karmic, and energetic part of tapping into the Akashic records and how that can reveal some of the ancestral karma or baggage that we also carry and how that affects our energetics as well.
Yeah. And maybe I'll shift the story from me. I'll talk about a client just to give a different perspective, a different example as well. So, this lady came to me, my client, and she came because she was repeatedly going through female infections. Like she would have thrush, then she would be on some bacterial thing. So, they would give her antibiotics for that. She would finish that. She would go back to the fungal thing. And it was a repeat. Like she was just doing that. So, she came to me because I just want to get over this. And when I opened the Akashic records for her, the first thing that came through was a past life in the 1800s. And in the 1800s, I saw her lying on the bed and she's giving childbirth. She is pretty like fit, able as a mom to be delivering, and the baby is very healthy as well. But 1800s, they don't have as much of, let's say, medical advancement as they do now. So she's pushing the baby out. She's also lying down. There's a lot of blood loss in that process. There's a lot of time that goes while she's trying to push the baby out. And by the time she pushes the baby out, the baby has transitioned. And it was a perfectly healthy baby, like ready to arrive, but that's what happened. And so I told her that this is what has happened, what her lesson that she needed to learn in that lifetime was just being able to own her body, even during that time, like how we can tend to just rely totally on the doctors and the medical professionals. And I'm by no means saying that don't do that. I'm just saying do that, but also honor and listen to your own body. listen to what your body is telling you, because she was just relying on the people around her. There were four people present in the room. One of them was a male doctor, not very comfortable as well during the whole time. There were other females with her, and she's trying to push the baby out, and it just wasn't working because somehow, especially as the pain went on, it was more like, okay, you tell me what to do, and so on. And she couldn't connect with her body as much then to be able to push the baby out and gently work with the body, because she was getting lost with the noise of everyone around and what they were telling her to do. So I think that's a message for all the listeners here as well, that a lot of times when we work, we push our way through, especially through our bodies. There's so much abuse that we do, even when we think we are caring for our bodies. That's a different section. But we can do that. But coming back to her this lifetime, when I told her that this is what's happening and this is what your soul wants you to do now in this lifetime as well, because you are getting these repeated infections because your body wants you to now work with it. What you were not able to do earlier, your body wants to do that. But here's the cool thing, I told her this, and then she said, "Oh, this is why I understand. I don't even want to think about having a child." Like someone speaks to me about getting pregnant, and like she's in a stable relationship for a good amount of time. And I just don't even want to think about a child. I love kids, but I could not think of that. And this is why. Because that childbirth, that child loss was affecting her now. Body remembers, right? Body has a very physical memory. So what's happened in our past life dictates a lot of what we are experiencing now. So her body message for the body was childbirth. No, this wasn't a great, we lost the baby. So the body is afraid, doesn't want to do that again. And this is what the body doesn't want to do. So of course we went ahead and we fixed, like we healed that whole lifetime. We pieced that whole piece together. There was a part of her soul that was lost then. So we really healed her whole apple, or her whole soul, so to speak, and really erase the root causes of why. And so she feels very differently now. We changed that, but that is the story of all of us. And with her, when I was working, as I was working in the healing as well, first we healed her, and then, and this is where all the silent pain that we carry on over the generations comes in as well. As I'm just sitting there and I'm just holding space, I'm not often in these sessions, it's like I step back and whatever has to happen happens, and I watch a movie literally. That this is what is unfolding now. I just hold the space there. And so once we healed her lifetime, then her mom's generation wanted to come, like her mom wanted to come, and all the other people, along with her dad, they all wanted to come because her mom had an abortion as well. So that is also the pain that we are carrying. We are physical body, we are carrying our mom and dad DNA, we're carrying DNA of our lineages. So they came in. And then we held a circle. I still remember the story with her. It comes back so vividly because I was sitting with her, holding the space. She's in the center, the sacred fire, and we had circles around her. So these were circles of her ancestors. The first ancestral circle, the second ancestral circle. We cleared, I saw seven. We cleared four of them. And then by the time we went to the fifth, sixth, and seventh, they were like, okay, no, we have already got enough of a healing, just watching the whole process. But that's the amount of abortions, miscarriages, rapes that we have going on in our bodies as well, sometimes as victims, sometimes as perpetrators. Like, just look at human lifetimes, look at human evolution in general. Our lives today are generally a lot more blessed, but go back one generation, two generation, and you would quickly start thinking that, oh, okay, my forefathers, they've been in wars. So wars would have meant they've obviously had to live through a lot of survival stuff. They've probably had to fight for food. They've had to fight for their lives and so on. Go back in history and then go back a bit further as well. We'll come to the places where we had flooding, where we had ice age. Like, it's hard to think that somehow any soul, or as we would like to think that we would have just been perfect, like nothing would have happened in our lives. That's just impossible. And we all carry that. We all deeply carry that in our epigenetics. We all deeply run that. When we start healing that, it's like starting to heal the DNA, literally, like the strands of the DNA, and bringing that whole piece together to wholeness, to its divine spark where it all started. When you start doing that, as I see the souls, they just start shining so much. And my clients will often say, "Oh, I can breathe more," which just means that they've expanded. As their energetic body has expanded, they've released a lot of the cords, the energetic ties that hold them back, and hence they expand. The generational healings that I do when I work with the ancestors, they're usually a lot more thankful because they're not. It's funny, sometimes we can think of control as, well, they're coming in and I'm impacted by that, as if they're controlling. But it's not that. It's, I see it more as a both process. They're tied into us, we're tied into them. And when we heal, they also get free because they're also stuck with us with something. So once we heal, they are free. And then they can go, they can do their things. And that's the time when we can actually start unlocking the gifts from our previous lives. So, all our lives, all the time when our soul's done all this experience, it's also learned something, it's also gained something. So I've seen, like, another client that I worked with in one of the previous lives, she was a warrior dancer. Like, she was very empowered as a female, and she was dancing, really owning her feminine space. And she would be like the one doing all the warrior moves in a dance stance. Like, she was the best amalgamation of it all. But again, that had been traumatized because things had happened in her life. Her husband had been killed. There were lots of stories said about her and so on. So that's a lot there to unpack. But once we heal that, she was able to bring that feminine empowerment into her space today. And she has really a huge gift with her voice, which is what she's able to bring out now. So this can be fantastic when we start working with our ancestral layers, the karmic layers. When we start unpacking that, we can almost come more into ourselves. We can unpack the gifts of our soul.
So what I'm hearing you say is that everything is pretty much intertwined. We have our past lives where we're bringing a lot of that energy that we experience in that life into this life, but also there's ancestral energy that flows through us, right? That in many ways, I've heard people say that we are our own ancestors, right? Someone could be the reincarnation of their great grandmother. For example, I've heard people say that. So I resonate with what you're saying in terms of it's not necessarily a punishment, right? What people would call an ancestral curse. It's more of this karmic cycle that your lineage has experienced, you've experienced, and in healing yourself, you can heal them. There's a relationship there, right? So again, for people who are listening, when you're talking about that particular client who kept having medical issues with her reproductive system, you brought in her ancestors. So they weren't there physically for those who are listening. It's not that they were
Yeah.
there physically, it was on an energetic plane. That's what you were talking about. So I do find all of what you're saying fascinating. And now I want to bring back the question that I put on pause, talking about reincarnation and why we're really here. Because I hear a lot of what you're saying, and I've heard people say similar things about the Akashic records, about how we're basically recycling energy from the past, especially our past lives, and working through that energy, transmuting that energy. But I think then it's a bit frustrating at times because, for example, you talked about living 200 lives, repeating the same cycle. But we come into this incarnation basically forgetting our past life. We start to think, then what is the purpose of this? And why do we forget so much? A lot of us remember bits and pieces here, but it almost seems as though the game is rigged in a way. So I just want to know what your thoughts are on reincarnation. Do you think we have to continue to come back until we learn of our all of our lessons? Have you tapped into the Akashic records to ask some of these questions that I'm asking you right now? If not, that's fine. I know sometimes there's no real answer to some of the questions I ask, but Just, I'm curious about it.
Here is what I've gotten so far because it's an interesting question. So, first of all, if we look at our human bodies, there is a finiteness to the human bodies. There's a finiteness to our brains, how much it can hold. We're supposed to, for example, be driving in traffic. We're supposed to be picking our kids up, doing the work that we are doing, and so on. So if we had all of that information, that would just literally overload. We would be over capacity in our brains. So instead, what happens is we get the stuff that we need bit by bit. And this is where our soul's really helping us. And whatever happens in our life that is working in our favor, there's a signal that they're trying to give to us. Even for a spiritual nerd like me or all the other spiritual explorers out there, we will look at something, we'll be presented with something because that's what we are able to work on with the body at that point in time. And then when we are ready, we might look at the same thing again, go, gosh, okay, this and this was also there, but we just didn't need to see it. We just didn't need to know it at that point in time. So, first of all, we are really cared for in this environment. Now, we come to the physical plane on earth very specifically. So, if I think of it in the soul perspective, right? Think of the soul or the spirit as like this floating thing that can go out, do anything, and so on. Earth is one of the physical dimensions, and Earth is a 3D matrix, as we would have heard from a lot of other people as well. So, when we come to Earth, there's a very physical way of creating, and hence it's actually like the spiritual kindergarten. And it is the reason why we come to Earth a lot of times is we want to come, we want to feel, we want to experience things, we want to have the joy of touching, the joy of eating and feeling that taste, the joy of feeling relationships as well, sometimes even the heartbreaks and so on. We want to have that experience. That's why we come to Earth. But it's a very simplified form of actually what our spirits, souls can do. Like it's a lot more simplified than that. And hence things are broken down so that we're just operating from that little bit. What is the purpose of coming into life here? Okay, this is the system, this is the mathematical system or the matrix at which Earth is at, where we just get shown, we'll just be a vibrational match to whatever we are vibrating at, and that becomes our lesson. That becomes, once you solve that, once you, let's give an example here, right? So let's say as a soul, I want to really learn about love. Now I might have a lifetime where I go, okay, what is it to have unconditional love? I might experience that. Sometimes I might go, okay, what happens if I lose my dad? Sometimes I might go, what happens if I am a cheater in the relationship? If I cheat on my partner, what happens if I have multiple partners? Because I'm just trying to have a fuller picture as the soul. I'm just trying to understand love like that. So, Earth happens to be that little apple slice. Earth just happens to be a playground for that little apple slice and the whole experience. And by the limitation of how Earth's set up, because it's a matrix, because we have our physical bodies, we can only store limited information. That's why only a limited amount comes through. But the more and more you work through your lessons, I've done the earlier time loops on Earth where I've done that 200 times and done the same thing. But this time I got to have more information. I remembered more of myself because I could take the step of clearing some of the lessons. First, for example, I got the loss, I could clear around the loss, and I could go, okay, I could just start understanding, accepting the fact that I am just a reincarnation. I'm not the body, I'm the spirit in a body. So that was the first realization. And then when you meditate, for me the way is meditation, but however other people are doing it and however other people are connecting, you get shown more and more things. It's not that your soul doesn't want you to remember, but it wants you to live. It's taking care of you in your body. It can't explode you. In fact, that's why a lot of times when people have an awakening experience, a lot of times they'll go, oh, my world's going crazy. Suddenly I got a lot of information and I just don't know what to do. That's why that happens. So it's good that most of us are generally taken care of. And even I would say that people who have awakening, that is what they were really calling into their existence. Their body was ready for it at some level. That's why they got it. But that's how. we're being carefully and mathematically, the precision is very aligned, where we're all like just lovingly cared for. Things are coming to us that we need.
Yes, I recognize, I should say, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I think what you're saying 100% makes sense. I think for me, my question goes even outside of that, which is why even create this matrix, right? Because it's just this, like you said, there's a lot of precision, right? Mathematical precision to say the least. We talked about the data storage of our lives, right? Our soul incarnations. And all of that, I think, makes sense. But sometimes I kind of question the ultimate purpose of coming into this dense reality and having all of these different incarnations or going through some of these traumatic things to learn lessons that we sometimes don't remember, right? So, to your point, we probably can't house all of the memories at once because of the limitations we have with our physical body. But it would be cool, it'd be nice to know, hey, I might not remember all of my past lives, but I know that I need to learn this particular lesson. But I understand what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Something else that you talk about a lot is multidimensional healing. And I think that's what you explained in that example with the woman and kind of healing her, but also her ancestral lineage. And the reason I'm even bringing this up again in regards to multidimensional healing is because I know we're talking about past lives, but a lot of people will say, our lives are happening all at the same time. There's really no such thing as time. And in order for us to have this conversation, we have to use the term past lives. But a lot of people will say that our lives are running at the same time. And when you fix something in one life, it affects the other lives. So someone could assume that the 200 lives that you lived where you were struggling to learn this lesson because you learned it in this lifetime, your other lives, your other incarnations are probably having a slightly easier time now, right? So
Mhm.
is that what you would describe as multidimensional healing that's not just affecting you, but your other lives that are happening simultaneously?
Mm. Yeah, and actually, this question ties up to what you were referring to earlier as well. In the wider scope of things, Earth is not the only planet which has got life, like we, and a lot of your listeners as well here right now. Chances are, if you're tuning into this conversation, just vibrationally, we would have been star seeds. We would have come from other galaxies. We would have had other incarnations. We have done much bigger work as well. And a lot of us at this time, so why we choose to be on this plane. By the way, every planet or wherever life is, life's going on by itself because of how life is started there. And so there's just a general process. This is what maybe someone's soul, just this is all that they are knowing and present right now. So, yes, that's possible. But then there are also other beings. There are also other star seeds who are coming from other galaxies, and they intentionally come onto Earth to help, knowing fully well that yes, they had multiple capabilities. So, for example, their capabilities in other galaxies might be that they're able to fly, they might be able to, but and even that's a very simplistic example, but the way their worlds would work would be a lot faster, would be a lot more tangible. And hence, I definitely think of myself a lot of times that I don't belong to Earth because I think I expect a lot of speed to happen, which is because in the previous lifetimes, things have happened a lot quicker. I haven't had to do them at Earth space. Whereas now it's, what do you mean? I need to do all the little bits and pieces. Whereas there are star systems where you can just think of something and thing will materialize. Telepathy is far more common and so on. So you come to Earth, it's a lot more limited. And sometimes and that's why a lot of star seeds can often feel as if life on Earth is very hard because it's slower or it's a lot different than what they've experienced. Feelings of love, etc., can be very different as well. But the process of forgetting, the process of coming here, it is literally because Earth is just made up with that. When Source first split itself, that is just the design. It split into when it wanted to have consciousness because it wanted to have wanted to understand itself more, wanted to get a lot more aware. So when it split, just by virtue of that split, and then when different star systems, galaxies were created, some were created some way, some were created with lesser capabilities. And Earth is actually one of those planets where a lot of other galactic beings, they're right now helping us get into the 5D vibration, which is going to be a lot more harmonious. But Earth's had a lot of this history where we've tried to have evolution on Earth. But also, if you go back to time, and I'm not even talking about Atlantis or Lemuria, but I'm talking about mythology, and there's a lot of in a lot of the mythological stories, the characters or the way things come around is a lot similar. For example, we would see, okay, there are creatures that are coming out bigger than life creatures. It's not that life on Earth has always been like this. I think of the monoliths, I think of the pyramids that we have around the Earth, and it's, at least in my head, it's impossible to think that humans would have done it, especially that time with limited abilities, or humans the way we know it now. I really have a very strong feeling that we were a lot more evolved or a lot more capable of doing things. And somehow in the process, especially around ice age flooding, we have lost that. And that's happened because we were not doing things in the right way. We just got a lot more darker. We got a lot more egoistical. We also had more of the other races come in. And hence the world or Earth had to have that purge so that we could then evolve. And now we're trying to rise up again. So there's a story of evolution with us, but there's a story of evolution with the planets. There's a story of evolution with all the galaxies around us as well. Nothing is finite, everything is flowing, everything is moving.
So we are multidimensional beings. So
Yeah.
to your point, nothing's finite. Things are moving. We've had different experiences from different star systems, planets, etc. So as we continue to heal on a soul level, there that reverberates across dimensions.
Yes, sorry, I did not answer that part around multidimensional healing. So, multidimensional healing is really tapping into those parts because, like, I was just looking at one of my parts where I was coming in onto the earth to help, and there was a part of my soul that just got frozen in time because I was stopped by the Anunnaki and the Greys. And but when you heal yourself, you bring yourself from there, means you're fully able to come in here yourself, which means that then you're able to have more of your gifts or more of your understanding as a soul, bring that into this lifetime. When I do the intergalactic healings, or what I call them, the quantum healings as well, when I do that with my clients, that's more healing what's going on beyond the earth. Because if we've had those lifetimes, and most of us have, because life did not originally, even people on earth, we all came from somewhere. So most people have had other lifetimes. We just might not remember. But when we do, that's the part that we heal, because our soul gets scarred with those wars and those things happening at a much bigger level then as well. Think of it, if I was thinking of the soul as the apple, and that is your capability as a soul, that is your entire, let's say, all the knowledge that you've had, all the gifts that you've carried, and so on. So we talked about the rotten apple. But when you don't have a part of your soul, or when it's lost somewhere, when you have those intergalactic, multidimensional traumas that you would have had, maybe there was a part of you like me which was involved in a war somewhere. Imagine that the apple gets chopped off and there's a whole quarter or there's a whole big piece of that apple missing. So when we do that multidimensional healing, then we are able to get that whole apple back. What that would mean to you in this lifetime as a tangible difference when you have worked with that healing is that, let's say, initially you felt that you were maybe even procrastinating a lot with doing something. Like internally, you deeply want to share something, you want to write a book, for example, but you're doing it, but it's going very slow. And sometimes that can be traced to past lives on earth, but it can also go to past lives way beyond that. And when you start doing that, then you realize, like how we talk about the witch wounds or the visibility wounds, because there have been attacks there as well. On the earth dimension, it would just be For example, when I'm looking at some of my clients now, a witch wound would be when they've been stopped from speaking, or when they've been killed for speaking. They've been choked, they've been stabbed to death, they've been put up on a pillar and then made like a public peace so that they can be punished for whatever they were saying. That's at an earth level. And that already is very traumatizing. When you go to the intergalactic lifetimes, then there can be where they were in a big war and they're being attacked by other reptilians and greys and so on, and they're really trying desperately to protect. This is when, if you have imagery from Star Wars, that's a good place to remember, but it's just at a bigger level. It's similar thing, but it's happening at a much bigger level. It just has a much bigger impact, but that's literally your blueprint. That is the stuff that you are carrying. So when you get that back, it's like you find the voice, you find that missing piece. Because before that, you're trying to tap into your voice, but it's just the whole piece is missing. The whole piece of the apple is missing where you have that gift. But when you are able to retrieve your soul, because that's coming from a fuller place, suddenly it becomes a lot easier to be able to write that book. And it's not that you're really procrastinating. That's a human term we put on that to be able to understand it, to be able to put a label to it. But what's going on is a lot deeper than that. When you clean out that one, then it's like your channels, everything just really flows, and you just suddenly get a whole surge of information. More people will come through and who will want to help you write your book and so on. So it just really happens almost on autopilot once you've started clearing these things at the bigger galactic level.
Very fascinating. Wow. I've just learned a lot there from you. And it also sounds a little bit like you're talking about potentially soul fragmentation and the
Yeah.
reintegration of the different parts of your souls. Before I ask you why you have chosen to primarily focus on working with parents, you said something interesting, and my curious brain wants to know. You said that there was an incarnation where you were stopped by the Anunnakis and the Greys. Could you just talk about that briefly? I'm curious to learn more about that.
I think this is my latest that I've discovered. So I was just healing it this morning before we got on the podcast. Oh, that's just part of my purpose why I was coming here. So I think, in terms of our galactic origins, where we come from, one of my origins is that I'm from the angelic realm who want to come out and help on Earth, help Earth take the next step. And so I'm trying to do something, but this is just this whole Star Warfare where I'm up on Earth. All I can see is I'm floating up on Earth in the realm. And I just have to laugh because otherwise I could just cry with it and then there's no moving forward. But I'm there and I'm stuck because as I'm trying to come down to it, they've just held me in place. But there's just the energy is so strong with the Anunnakis, and they had a lot of fire and like energetic way in which they were stopping me to actually come down on earth. So that's where I felt my soul was still hanging there. It was still hanging up there. And this is where I saw this beautiful thing. We were talking about relationships earlier with our ancestors. It's a two-way street. When I started working on the energies, so I looked at the Anunnakis, I looked at the Greys, I looked at the reptilians, and I freed. So to heal myself, I healed them first. I let them go. And it was like, poof, they could float away as well. Because till that time, the whole thing was really like I was there, and all these, let's say three, if I put them into three big chunks, they were all there as well. As much as I was stuck, they were also stuck holding that energy. When I healed, they could all go and I could go as well. So, this is this beautiful thing around Earth. I think the vibration around Earth, and probably very good for just generally all listeners to know, because who are listening to all of this and going like, how do I do this on my own? The vibration of Earth is love, is universal love. That's why we keep saying love heals everything. I have done this in my spiritual journeys where I've tried to fight with whatever I felt is malevolent. And I'm not saying accept them and love them. To me, the definition of love is very different. Love is, I see you. I see you for what you are, whether you are dark, light, I see you, and it's okay. It just means that I am allowing the energy to flow through me and I'm not going to let that bother me. But when I am cleared of that myself, because remember, it's all energy, this is how we are all getting tied to. For anyone to attack you, for anyone to love you, there's got to be a connection that they've got to make. If you're just so much in flow, there's no place for them. There's just no place for that darkness to come in. So when I said that I healed, I basically came to a place, well, I see the reptilians. Okay, this is what you're doing. Fine. Cool. I'm okay. I'm just going to run my energy here. You can keep doing your thing. Because when I got trapped with that, it was more that I got afraid. Oh, this is what they can do. And this is what you will see in a lot of the Star Wars or in a lot of these fiction, science fiction movies as well, that someone gets afraid, there's some thought that they have where they drop their vibration. But the minute I went, okay, I see what you're doing and I'm cool with it, they can't hold me anymore. Then they're free. And this is what I did with all the others as well. And just feeling, okay, cool, I see you, what you are doing, and I'm not afraid. And that's that vibration of love. And it's okay because love also is that I'm not trying to control you. I'm just okay.
You're in flow. So it sounds like you might have been trapped because they didn't want you to come incarnate as a human being.
Correct.
But
Yes.
once you
Yes.
release the fear of being trapped, they could no longer hold you.
Correct. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so recently you said that you made a pivot and you primarily focus on working with parents. Why is that? Why are you so passionate about working with parents?
Oh, first of all, I am a mom, and I think I was always a mom. That's just something that is very deeply resonant in me. I remember myself as a child. I was always the mom with the dolls. I was always the mom with the little kids. I was 3, 4. I was just still playing with babies. I was always a mom. But also, I think that when we look at mom, especially when we look at parenting, when we look at kids, when I can work with parents and help them parent from a better place, I'm helping them raise a generation that has a lot more space to just be themselves, to just fully evolve as themselves, right? Like a lot of the wounds that we have in our lifetime, they also stem from our childhood because this is something that my parents said. This is what my teacher said. This is how I was made to feel small because I did not know maths or because my speech stuttered, or this is how. But imagine having that childhood, imagine having that grown up space where your parents can just see you, where you are fully allowed to come in, where you are fully able to express yourself. So I feel that it's a great place to do that because when I do this work, I help parents, I help their kids, and then I help people who are watching this whole relationship play out as well because there can be a different way to it. So parenting is just very close to my heart. When you start working with parenting particularly, you also work with generational issues. A lot of the stuff that we carry is generational. The way we love, the way we parent, automatic pilot is the generational stuff unless we choose to change the story. You'll often hear yourselves talking to your kids and you go, oh, that's my mom. Or someone else, some other authority figure. So it's multi-generational. When I do this work, it just gives me so much back when I see the impact that they have. I'll give you examples. Like one of the dads that I helped with recently, he was going through, like, he separated from his daughter's mom. And mom was really furious one day because what had happened was the child was with dad and she fell down and she had a concussion, which is worrying enough. But she was like, you know what? You just don't do it right, and you don't know how to be a dad. And I'm going to be the mom, and I'm going to have her for full time custody. She wrote down a whole letter, whereas he'd been doing everything, and she was a 6 year old. So you don't expect the child to fall. You're not like really watching. It could have happened with anyone. The child's okay. The child didn't have anything else, like it was a concussion. She's okay. But he had this legal letter which really prevented him from seeing his daughter at any other place other than the mom's house. And that would just mean that the whole lifetime was like that. So when I looked at it in the Akashic records, I healed his relationship with his daughter. Energetically, we worked through that. We worked with all the things that would have happened that were causing that to happen in his reality. We cleared the energetic space for his daughter. We had mum see this whole space as well, because it's very much from a place of ego that she's coming and going, you're not having the daughter. But actually, sometimes the things that we can do, which we feel we're doing good as a parent, they're not coming out for the best interest of our child. It's our ego. We feel like, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Sometimes it's, I need to be looked at, I need to be doing the right thing in the society. And so we cleared that. And it was so quick, it was so good, because the next day he went. So he picked his daughter, dropped her to school, and then had a chat with mom. And she's, I think maybe we can just think about it differently, because perhaps I'm not doing the right thing for our daughter, which she wasn't. She was just acting out of a place of spite, of trying to get back to him for the issues that she had with dad, but that should not be affecting the child. So I think that's how this work is so powerful, because usually these kids, they can't say a lot of things. And I'm not even meaning kids who are younger. I also mean kids who are 13. I also mean kids who are 18, 20. Look back to your life. There's stuff that we figure out for us now. We didn't even know it then, to even if we had a safe space to speak up. So it's really good to have parents who can see through and see their child's soul. I think the difference that I do here is, rather than parenting from a place of this is how society wants it, I help parents understand their child's soul. What is their relationship there, the spiritual contract? What is it that the child really wants from the relationship? And then both of them can just support each other that way. Otherwise, we have a very limited perspective. Like, sometimes parents come to me, especially with kids of like speech delays or someone's on the spectrum and so on, and they're doing everything that the doctors or the therapists are telling them, right? But you don't know why your child chose this in this lifetime. What is it that they're really wanting? And help them do that instead, because that is more healing for them. Because guess what? A couple of things will happen when you just see their soul. Soul already has the knowledge that it needs to bring in here. Simply by allowing that, you allow them to heal, you allow them to already have their lessons and so on. So that's the bigger thing. Also, otherwise, you might mess up your child more, like mess up in the sense of their life purpose and what they want to do, because they might need to reincarnate again. Like, I reincarnated 200 times. I'm not, hopefully, like other kids don't have to do that. But this is what you get with more conscious parenting, that you are able to help your child's soul achieve what they want to do so that they don't have to do it again and again. Sometimes we as parents can overstep. We don't know that we overstep.
Very important work that you're doing here. And I love that you specifically focus on working with parents because, like you said, our parents eventually become our ancestors, right? And on top of that, a lot of the trauma that people end up working through almost for the rest of their life, a lot of that trauma is created in childhood intentionally, but a lot of times unintentionally by our parents. So I think you working with parents is very powerful because you are giving parents a different level of awareness and understanding, not just on a physical plane, but on a spiritual plane, a life path, soul contracts. And I think the domino effect of that is creating less trauma, creating less karma or karmic debt that needs to be paid, and healing on both sides for the parent and for the child, or mitigating potential, again, trauma and issues that might come up. Because you're right. I think a lot of times parents want the best for their kids and want to steer them in a certain direction, but that direction is in conflict with the child's soul path or soul evolution. So a parent quickly recognizing that can really help the child to stay on the path that is destined for them. Fantastic work. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kanika. I feel like I say this to all my guests, and it's really the truth. We could go on forever because these subject matters call for nothing but going down a rabbit hole. So I appreciate you so much for this fantastic conversation. And I have to end by asking you, have you shifted in perspective on anything recently? And I ask this to all my guests, so it could be as lighthearted as you'd like it to be or as deep as you'd like it to be.
I think the shift that I am working through right now is trust. You know how I was saying around flow. So, as much as I felt that, oh, I'm allowing and I'm stepping back and I'm doing this, I find that even with my work that I was doing, I was still trying to predict the outcomes of things. But here's what I'm realizing more to give everyone a perspective. So I'm on the earth is spinning every day, like every day, and I'm like one. And by the way, even our bodies, we think of them as pure solids, they're vibrational bodies as well. So everything is energy, everything is flowing. I used to feel like I need to control everything and I need to like consciously do something so that this is the output that I want. And I'm finding that the best way of manifesting, the best way of doing everything is just to allow more of that flow to happen. And it also ties a little bit to the question that you were asking earlier, why on earth? Because really what you're asking around that earth and it being a limited experience is we are having the limited experience because Earth, yes, Earth has the matrix around it. And when we are tapped in more into the matrix, we feel that limit more. But it is up to us to not be tapped into the matrix as much. So we can choose to untap from it, get our vibrations higher, and allow more of that flow. Again, it's very mathematical. The more and more you do it, the more and more you trust, the more and more you allow yourself to just step back to accept that whatever is happening in your good, and I am thinking of this word more accept, more like whatever happens, even if I don't like it, just accepting it, going, hey, what is it that I have to learn, and just doing that. The more I'm doing that, I'm finding that life is more in the flow. So I'm not sure how much sense I've made here, but it's really like allowing all the chaos, if that is, just accepting, just being okay, just coming to peace with it. And I'm finding that the more I do that, the more life opens up to me, the more it's just getting more miraculous. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. To sum it up, you had a shift in perspective relating to releasing control, being in flow, and trusting.
Beautiful. Love how you said that.
So, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or work with you?
Okay, so I can be found at Kanika Energy Coach. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. And my website is artoflifecenter.com. I do have something for all the parents who are listening to this. So there is a freebie that I am offering. You can find it at artoflifecenter.com/parent. This is a three-part audio series because we've talked a lot around soul contracts. So this will help you understand your soul contracts with your child, understand your karmic patterns with your child, and clear them. It's a three-part audio series, just about 10 minutes. So I'll be in your inbox for 3 days. And you learn in that why you chose your child, why your child chose you, what is the karmic pattern you have in between, and how can you really bring it to the vibration that you would like so that you can have a much more peaceful, more joyful relationship with your child.
Fantastic. I'm going to leave the link to everything that you just brought up in the show notes. Again, it was such a pleasure speaking with you on the show.
Thanks a lot, Jomi. I have loved every minute, loved your questions. Thank you so much.